Welcome to Hangouts with Hello Sunday Morning. My guest on this episode reached me through LinkedIn and shared her story with me. And it's a powerful story that I think deserves a wider audience. Kath Elliott gave up 2 months after she gave up drinking. Kath Elliott was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she credits the fact that she gave up drinking to her ability to help her through the emotional upheaval of the cancer journey. So welcome, Kath. Just to kick off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your relationship with alcohol and how that's changed over time.
Thanks, Andy. It's a real privilege to be here. I'm really looking forward to sharing my story. I think my relationship with alcohol started, I guess I had my first drink when I was probably about 14. And like most teenagers, I think I stole a bottle of champagne or something from my parents and, overdrank and had a terrible experience, I think, with a girlfriend where we were sick and that kind of thing. And then I guess I didn't drink a lot for a few years, I guess until I was about 16 or 17. And that's when I started getting into a real pattern of what I would say was binge drinking. So drinking a huge amount on a weekend or on a Friday, Saturday night. I'd have periods where I wouldn't drink much. And then that went into my uni days as well. And I think like a lot of Australians growing up as teenagers in the 80s, this was behaviour that I guess was very normalised in Australia. It was something that, in a way, it was revered. And I was a girl or a woman, however I like to term myself, who actually had quite a high tolerance for alcohol. So I was, particularly with the boys and men that I hung around with, they used to say, oh, you can drink more than most men and this kind of thing. So it was like I was being given a real pat on the back for the fact that I could consume a lot of alcohol. And I had a feeling, even in my 20s, that it wasn't a healthy way of being, because I was quite into sort of, exercise, and I did have an interest in health, but yeah, my drinking, I just thought, oh, well, everyone else is doing it. It's not really that big a deal. I guess what everyone does.
Yeah. And so at what point did you start to think that, and what point did you start to change your relationship with alcohol?
Look, I think it was a slow burn. I think there was always I had a voice in my head often that would say, after a night where I might have said something I regretted or had blackouts or, had an argument with, a boyfriend or a friend of mine where I'd sort of wake up and feel, pretty guilty about what had happened. I think even in my 20s, there was a lot of that sort of pattern of behaviour going on where I would wake up the next morning and I'd feel ashamed and I'd regret what had happened. And then I'd sort of say to myself, oh, well, I'll stop drinking for a while. And so then I'd have no problem abstaining. That was fine.
Yeah.
And then it was this whole idea of, I'll be able to moderate and that kind of thing. And I guess I had an issue with moderation. Whenever I'd go out again socially, I'd fall into the trap and the tipping point would hit and I would be, back in a place of kind of, not remembering things, waking up the next morning with huge regret and then having to try and trace back things that had happened. Yeah. And that was a pattern, I think, through my 20s, 30s and 40s. I mean, I had children, so I was pregnant. I didn't drink then, but it was still this undercurrent of learned behavior that and normalized behavior but there was this voice in my head constantly sort of saying, you really need to look at this. It wasn't until my 40s, so I'm 47 now, my early 40s, I was going through quite a stressful period. My husband and I, we'd gone through quite a difficult time in our relationship. Financially, we'd had a lot of issues, and I started drinking a bit more again, and we started binge drinking a bit together just to sort of relieve stress.
Yeah.
And it was then that I started looking and thinking, this is really unhealthy. I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
Uh, at that point in time, the stress of it all, I couldn't really pull myself back, but I did. I started to do quite a bit of journaling and writing about it, and started, I guess, researching a bit on the internet as well as to, you know, were there other people who were feeling similar stories, you know, similar to me, I guess, and they were sharing their stories. I didn't find a lot around until I, you know, stumbled upon, I think, Jill Stark's story. You know, she was a former, or maybe she's still a journalist at the age, I think, but yeah, and I could relate to a lot of her story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's incredible, really, that even though, and I relate to this completely because your journey is very similar to mine, and isn't it incredible that even though your internal voice is telling you that this is not the right thing to do, that there's powerful forces around in the environment that's telling you that it's actually normal, and it's a normal thing to do, and it's a normal thing, and we should be doing this kind of stuff. And it's, you know, it takes a lot to kind of change that. So what was the kind of the real trigger for you that kind of changed that?
So the trigger for me was last year I'd sort of set aside July. I was going to take off, you know, a month off drinking again.
Yeah.
And in the lead up to July, I'd been thinking a lot about it. It was on my mind a lot more than it had been in the past. And I guess I'd also had a couple of very close friends who had given up drinking for a prolonged period of time. So I had one friend who was, you know, very dependent on alcohol, and she had given up completely, and she'd had probably 3 or 4 years where she hadn't drunk.
Yeah.
And she was a real role model to me in the way that she turned her life around, and the way that she would still come to a lot of our social functions and be present and enjoy it all without drinking. So for me, I just started to think, you know what, I really want to test this out further. I want to go into my habits a bit more deeply. I want to start journaling each day about it. And I actually joined a group called the Alcohol Experiment. It's run by a lady in America. She just had this 30-day challenge that happened to kind of coincide with July. And so I was sort of immersed in this program there. And look, what it opened my eyes to was that so many people across the world struggle with alcohol. It is insidious, and particularly in American, Australian and British culture, we have a massive problem. And so I could say that there were lots of women all over the world who had binge drinking problems like I did. And it made me, I guess, I didn't feel alone, but I also realised that I needed and wanted to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so I just decided after July, I was going to take another month off and see how I felt. I was starting to feel really clear in my mind as well. Like I was starting to feel really as if, I could tell there was more space in my mind. I'd stopped drinking.
I can relate to that. And so how long after you kind of made that decision, because you got a bombshell of a diagnosis, how long after that did that occur?
So the diagnosis came at the end of August. So I stopped drinking for 2 months, and at that point in time I felt really strongly that I wanted to continue on that complete abstinence pathway. it was a daily decision I was making as well. It wasn't like, I'm never going to drink again. Each day I just woke up, and it was a commitment I was making to myself. I don't feel like drinking today. I'm not going to drink today.
Yeah.
I think it really helped me. It wasn't about I'm giving up drinking forever and
Yeah.
terrible. For me, it was just, so how do I feel today, and what's my commitment today?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was diagnosed. I found a lump and was diagnosed with an aggressive growing breast cancer at the end of August last year. And I guess I was thrown into treatment very quickly from that point. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh God, you know, you have to have a drink. I mean, this is the most stressful period of your life." And
It's so counterintuitive, isn't it?
yeah, completely. And I guess in my mind, I felt that drinking at that point in time was probably the worst thing I could have done for my mental health.
Yep.
And that I needed to be in a really strong mindset and a clear mindset.
Yeah.
And one that I guess the thing I noticed when I stopped drinking was alcohol, and using alcohol and going out and hangovers and all of that takes up a lot of capacity in your life. And once you move it out, so much starts to come up, other things, creative things that you want to do.
Yeah.
So with my breast cancer diagnosis, I wanted to make sure that I put all my positive energy into being in the best place I could be. And alcohol, I knew, did not have a role to play there.
Yeah.
And I strongly believe that if I'd been drinking during that period, my mental health would not have been in a good place.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very easy to go down into, you know, some really dark thoughts. I mean, you've got to look your own mortality in the eye, and you step into a lot of fear. And there is, I guess, for the first time, and I look at breast cancer as the first time in my life when I've been through incredible stress and challenges that I have not used or numbed the emotions with alcohol.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful for me.
And again, there's so many parallels between my story and your story. Did you find that when you first gave up alcohol, I mean, you're doing it at an incredibly difficult time, and a lot of people use alcohol to kind of almost numb emotion and put things off and all that sort of stuff. How did you deal with the kind of newfound kind of feelings that you had to deal with during that period?
Yeah, it was actually overwhelming. And that's one thing I noticed. There was so many feelings coming up. There was a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of past hurt and pain coming up as well, that I was like, where's this coming from? But of course, the diagnosis brought up a whole lot of stuff. So look, I went down the Western medicine path, but also complemented that with doing a whole lot of other therapies, and those really supported my emotional and mental health and physical health in that I felt like I was able to release some blockages in my system. So I did Reiki, I did energy healing, I went and saw a kinesiologist. And those things really, and I did a lot of meditation as well. So a lot of visualization, a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling. So all of those things really helped me. But there was still a lot emotionally to work through. And I think that was, again, a result of not drinking, because in the past, drinking repressed, numbed, pushed it down, or it provided an opportunity to, you know, be vulnerable whilst you were drunk. You didn't remember. It wasn't an authentic connection, whereas all of a sudden I was then forced to have authentic connections with people that I remembered, and face up to really what was going on, you know, internally within myself. So I think the relationship with myself became hugely important, not
Yep.
only through my diagnosis and recovery, but had this ripple effect
Yep.
over, my whole family, my friends.
Yep.
And I guess what I realized was that there was so much love around me as well. So through facing up to a whole lot of stuff that was going on, I was then able to open up a pathway to love and connection unlike I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I will, be forever grateful for that.
Yeah. I think it does give you greater capacity for um, the ability to almost like, I wouldn't call it unlimited, but you have enough to go around for everybody essentially. Whereas with alcohol, it really limits your ability to be able to show emotion and love for other people because, I think well, I don't know about you, but alcohol kind of makes me go more into myself, not outwards, essentially. It's a kind of a selfish act in a way. So no, I kind of hear you. Now, where are you on your kind of journey in terms of breast cancer now?
Yeah, so look, I'm in remission, so I'm very grateful now. I'm still
Yeah.
going through treatment,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling mentally and physically and emotionally in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I still don't have difficult days, and I'm still, even in a way, processing what's happened in the last year. You sort of, such a shock, it hits you, then you get into doing mode, you go through treatment, and I'm officially still in treatment.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I still even think to myself, this time last year, I had no idea
Yeah.
what was about to unfold. And I guess that's the thing with life. You don't know what's about to unfold. But I think my relationship with alcohol is forever changed because of this experience.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that since I've stopped drinking, even when I socialize, I'm able to really be present and have a good time. There's always a time to leave, and at the moment we can't socialize in Melbourne because we are, we're in lockdown 2.0. But when I was socializing with people who were drinking, I had no problems with it whatsoever. It was still, I actually enjoyed the evening more because I remembered everything. B, I was more present, and C, I could leave when I wanted to.
Yes.
And just go, you know what, that's it. That's the night's done.
Yeah. I think there's also more certainty as who you are as a person to be able to manage those situations as well. It gives you more confidence, I think, as well.
So much more confidence.
Mm.
A lot of people say, oh, how does it feel going out and not drinking?
Mm.
I'm like, I actually enjoy it because I'm still one to get on the dance floor sober and all of that. I still, in fact, I enjoy it more.
Yep.
And I guess that was the other thing that was, I looked back at a couple of moments during the last few years that I really regretted when I'd binged and then I couldn't connect back with the emotions that I really wanted to feel. So, one of my brothers got married in 2014, and I was part of the bridal party. And look, it sort of coincided with a bit of a stressful time in my life. So I drank a lot, and, I said some things to my mum that I really regretted and just behaved in a way that it just, I wasn't proud of.
Yeah.
And then I'm a big AFL supporter, and the team I break for, Carlton, made the elimination final in 2013 against Richmond. It was, I was at the match, and it was just, Carlton were behind and came back and won, and it was one of those kind of moments. And I drank, and I can't remember the absolute joy that I felt because I was too drunk.
Yep.
So I look back at those times, and I think alcohol, it numbs everything, because even it comes into our life, in celebration, but also when we're going through tough times. But really, it numbs out all those feelings. You don't really know what they feel like until you take it out of your life. And I guess that was the other thing I realized, even during, I guess, what I would call my darkest time going through cancer. I experienced moments of absolute joy and love
Yep.
I have not experienced
Yep.
before. And I'm really glad that I didn't have alcohol kind of, propping those up as well.
And so, mother, job, wife, you've got multi roles in your life. How do you think alcohol has affected your ability to be, I guess, more present with those kind of roles and understanding those roles?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, Andy. I guess with my husband, it's been a really interesting journey because a lot of our socialization had been with drinking and binge drinking. So it's really, I guess, changed our relationship. And I can't say it's been easy,
Yeah.
but it's interesting. My husband is now, of his own sort of, I guess, own volition, decided that he's going to take some time off drinking.
Yeah.
And he is noticing some incredible benefits from
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And so it's been nice for us to relate in that space as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And look, I've got 3 sons. I've got 2 who are teenagers, and they're sort of getting to an age where, experimentation with alcohol has and will happen.
Yeah.
So for me, I was actually worried about what I was role modeling to the kids with my binge drinking, and they had seen me in a couple of, I guess, predicaments that I'm not proud of, and they'd seen me fall over and just quite smashed, and um, I thought about that, and I thought I really want the kids to learn from my experience as well. So I've been very honest with them about my experience with my drinking, and then also my choice now not to drink. So I think the way we can be role models to anyone in our lives is actually share our real experience, and that's not and that's warts and all as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's really important to, none of us are perfect, and I'm a big believer that we are all beautiful in our imperfection. So for me, that is all about being vulnerable and taking the masks off and actually sharing who we really are and not who we want the world to see. So
Yeah.
that for me, with my boys is super.
And that's a scary thing to do, but it's also an empowering thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I realised that when I was going through cancer as well. I shared my journey through an Instagram account, and it was really putting yourself out there in quite a vulnerable space.
Yeah.
But the actual connection and love that came back and the channel that was open through doing that was amazing for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's changed the way I relate, not only to myself, but to others now. And I'm really on I guess, a bit of a mission for people to, show more of who they are and really what's going on. When people ask you how you are, it's that whole thing of actually, if things aren't going well or something's happening, actually tell people, because it's not, I'm fine,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to have the same thing. I mean, I was diagnosed with cancer a long time ago. I was in 1997. And doctors used to say to me, you need to remain positive. And you know what? Sometimes through cancer, you're feeling absolutely shit. And so I just thought, no, I'm not doing that. If people ask, the reason why they want you to be stoic, I think, is because it's easier for other people, not easier for yourself. And so I just took the same decision as you did, is, if I'm feeling crap, I'm just going to say that I'm not feeling very well, because it's a difficult journey. What's your kind of overall, if you had a message, what's your final thoughts on this for other people who are kind of in the same boat as you and kind of thinking about, wanting to give up, and finding it tough to be able to do it? Because I think, you've been on the journey and people know that it's not good for you as you go through. What would you say for them to kind of take that extra step, that big step that really stops them from doing it, that scary step?
Yeah, look, I guess part of that, I think, is a lot to do with shame. And I would say we all feel shame. And to step, for me, it was about, no one's alone in this. We all go through our issues, and there's a lot of people struggling with alcohol. And I think the thing is, there are groups out there who can help you. And I've found that starting to talk about it, and even, Hello Sunday Morning did come into my sphere, and I started seeing people sharing their stories through the website. And that for me was really empowering, because it made me start to think and look at my own drinking. And I think the thing is, sometimes it takes, I guess, a bit of time for it all to land. But what I would say is, we are all accountable for our own health and our own drinking, whatever it is. And everyone's story is different. Everyone's level of drinking is different. Everyone's level of dysfunction or what's going on is different. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. If you feel that your drinking is problematic and causing you issues and not making you happy, then it means that it's something to look at. And I would also say, it doesn't mean you need to completely stop drinking. And that's not what I advocate. I'm not that person who says, life, don't drink. It's about what's right for us. So I think, and particularly women, I guess, in my vintage, we've been brought up in a big binge drinking culture. There is a link between alcohol consumption and breast cancer, which I'm really strongly keen to promote. 20% of breast cancer diagnoses are linked to alcohol consumption, in particular hormone receptor positive breast cancers, which is what I was diagnosed with.
Yeah.
So I think, alcohol has become so normalized, but it is actually, a carcinogen, and it's something that we need to, I think, keep putting out into society, that there are a lot of health risks. And binge drinking is still a major problem. So yeah, I think anyone who's looking to change their alcohol consumption and habits, there's lots of support and lots of programs. I think it's really hard to do it on your own. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Kath. I absolutely loved talking to you today. And as I said, I think we've got obviously a similar journey in many ways. And I'd love to just keep in touch with you on an ongoing basis. And if there's anything that we can do at Hello Sunday Morning to support you or support other people around you, please let us know. But again, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's it's been a powerful story, and I wish you well with the rest of your cancer journey. And obviously the treatment's is not quite finished, but fingers crossed that everything's okay. I'm sure it will be. You're on the right path. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Andy. An absolute privilege and pleasure to share my story. I think what your organisation's doing is incredible. And I'd love to stay in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.